Hey, Christian and Max, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yay. How are y'all?
I'm well. How are
Good.
you?
Okay, y'all, welcome. Sorry for being a couple minutes late. It's good to see everyone. I'm going to share, what am I going to do here? I am going to pull up, okay, first I'm going to check my UT Tyler email. Yes, okay. And I'm going to upload this. I'm not going to upload it. I'll do it later. I'm just going to share my screen. Download. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Sorry, guys. Greetings. I'm excited about Thomas Aquinas today. I hope everyone can see this. It's not exactly complex. I plan on putting this up on Canvas very soon. I hope everyone had a good weekend. And y'all, what we're going to do today is talk about Thomas Aquinas, finally, right? We're going to watch a quick video. I debated that. We're going to watch a quick video. Then I'm going to give you some general brief remarks about the overall structure of the Summa. The Summa, the first volume of which I'm holding in my hand. I brought some show and tell today. This is what I photocopied and put on Canvas at the beginning of the semester. I'm going to pass this around in a minute, like show and tell. We're going to do look at number 2. We're going to do some brief general remarks about the overall structure of the Summa. And by the way, this comes from a book called Aquinas' Summa, Background, Structure, and Reception, which is really good, by a guy named Jean-Pierre Terrell, OP. By the way, look at this. Do you see the OP? Oh. Oops. Do you see the OP right here? Right there? What does that mean? Who can tell me what that means? Order of preachers, which is what? Mason, do you know? Yeah, go ahead. Say more. Yeah, it's the Dominicans. It's the Dominicans, one of 2 mendicant orders. Let me hear you say mendicant. I'm going to write that on the board. Mendicant, one of 2 mendicant orders, and I will switch back to that. Yep. Nope. Yep. Let's see. I think the only way I can go back to the, okay, I want you to go away. No, I want these little thanks. Okay, thank you. All right, I think the only way for me to make people at home see the whiteboard is if I stop sharing my screen. And even then, maybe not. Yeah, I'm sure that they can. Okay. I'm not doing that. Perfect. Okay. Actually, I kind of like that. they can almost see both. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to write mendicant on the board. Mendicant. I see now why the IT people encouraged me to use the dot cam in a piece of paper. I might try that for my next class. Mendicant. It comes from the word beg in Latin. Hey there, Michael, welcome. Mendicant, there's two mendicant orders. They popped up at the same time. What are the two mendicant orders? Yeah. The Franciscans and the Dominicans. Now, what famous person was a member of the Franciscan order? Bonaventure. What famous person, Mirka, was a member of the Dominican order? Do you remember? Thomas Aquinas. He was a Dominican. That's right. Who was the founder of the Franciscan order? Just think. Go with your instincts. St. Francis. And you online, you can talk too, I think, right? That's right. Francis started the mendicant order. Who was St. Bonaventure's master / teacher / teacher? Alexander of Hales. I'm not going to test you on that. Who was Thomas Aquinas's master / teacher? Albert the Great, sometimes called Albertus Magnus. I'm not going to test you on that either. But yeah, so these orders popped up. They sprang into existence really just in the century prior to the heavyweights, Aquinas and Bonaventure. Aquinas and Bonaventure were in the 13th century. These mendicant orders popped up in the 12th century. Last time we looked at the way that the Dominican order did pop up. It had to do with that heresy. Remember that word heresy just means choosing. It had to do with that word heresy, the Albigensians. And heresy is not false. I hope you remember that. For the grand spectrum of Christian truth, a heretic says, I really like this part right here, this sliver. And they get so obsessed with this that they forget about this and they forget about this. That's what I'm saying a heretic is. I mean, I don't really care if you think heresy is a thing. I just want you to know historically what it means. Okay? And so we looked at the origins of the mendicant order of the Dominicans last time, but started by St. Dominic, and how there was this group of people called the Albigensians, and there's a lot we could say about them, but one of the things, the most important thing is that they sort of insisted on poverty, which was a thing. That was a thing in the medieval world. They insisted on poverty. And what's crazy is that St. Dominic and his homies, they moved in there and they affirmed, they said yes, they gave a high five to those heretics who insisted on imitating Jesus in embracing poverty. Are you with me? And they even did that in opposition to whom? Anyone remember? The Inquisition. Kind of crazy. If you were to make a list of the top 10 ways in which this class surprised you and challenged some of your assumptions about the way you view the medieval world, maybe that would be on that list. That the order, that the dude who founded the Dominicans was opposing the Inquisition. Pretty interesting, right? Okay. Anyway, all that, I wanted to show you the book. I wanted to show you the book, the title of the book, and the title of the author, OP, just in order to sort of remind you or show you that this isn't just some historical relic. There's still Dominicans running around today. Now, not in Tyler, because we're in the Bible Belt. Is there anyone who is Catholic or maybe has a Catholic background? Okay, at least one person in the class. Yeah, maybe you know some people who've taken monastic vows. Maybe you have an uncle or a great-grandparent on your mother's side who you hear stories about. So there's like the monastic orders, including the mendicants, they're still a thing. They're still around. I have many, many friends who are Franciscan monks and Dominican monks. They don't live in Tyler, but I see them at conferences that I go to. Does that make sense? Good. Okay. Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to watch a brief video. Y'all, we're not going to keep, I'm not going to continue my lecture on Thomas Aquinas next week. So by the time we get to the end of class Wednesday, we're going to officially put an end to my official lectures on Thomas Aquinas. I think that we will get to the Summa today. If we don't, it's okay. We'll have the entire class period next time to delve into the Summa. And what we're going to do together is we're going to read from the prima pars. I'll come back to that in a moment. We're going to read we're going to read question 2, article 2. Question 2, article 2 of the Summa. I guess I shouldn't have moved this, sorry. Okay, so that's what we're going to do after these remarks today. And if we don't get to that today and only have Wednesday to do it, no problem. I mean, it's not long, but it is dense. So anyway, that's what we're going to do, okay? So I've got a quick video for you. While we're watching this video, which I don't think, yeah, I'm gonna record it on Zoom, and I'm gonna put the Zoom video on my YouTube channel. I don't think that it'll get flagged because of copyright issues, because it's not very long, and I think that I've done this one before. I'm gonna risk it. I'm just gonna risk it. Let's do that. Let's do that. So Max and Christian, can I put the link? I can put the link on Canvas. Can I put the link on Zoom somehow?
Yeah, you should be able to use the chat feature.
Yay. I'll do that. I'll put the, so you guys at home, this video is like 12 minutes long, I think. It's not long. I want you to go ahead and watch it, okay? Yes. But it will be recorded because this video is being recorded in the cloud. But I get your point, and I thought about that earlier. Is that what you would recommend that I do? Oh yeah, right. Oh, the pause only pauses the recording, but they can still watch it. Yes, because you're not stopping your video or your. Oh wow. Okay, this is also helpful for my next class. Okay, so you guys, Mac and Christian, did you get all that? So I'm going to share my screen, which is already, okay. And I'm going to play the YouTube video, but I'm going to hit pause somehow. Stop recording? No, pause recording. That's it. Okay. All right, Max and Christian, I think that's going to work. All right. Actually, the link is right here. Hello, email. There we go. Okay, awesome. Right, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to pause recording, and Mac and Christian and Max, y'all are still with me, right?
Yes, I see the video.
And then this image of the sun, the first of these 3 images, the sun is something that you cannot look at, because why? It'll blind you. Would everyone agree with me that, like, I mean, maybe you can look at it for like 5 seconds, maybe, kind of, sort of. It's not like you can focus on it and make heads or tails of anything, but you can, I guess you could look at it for maybe 5 seconds, but then, or 10, I don't know, and then, but then you're going to go blind. Does everyone agree with that? And so that's a big deal for Plato, because what he wants to say is that while we cannot see the sun, we see everything else in its light. Yes, we have artificial lights, but still, these artificial lights wouldn't be around if it weren't for the sun. So in a sense, we cannot look at the sun, we cannot grasp the sun, we cannot capture the sun with our intelligent minds, but everything else, we cannot know the sun, but everything else we know in its light. And Christians have loved this metaphor, and not just Christians, but Jews and Muslims, and Buddhists as well. And they say that that is a great metaphor for God. But here's what I want to say to you right now. Guess what? Does the sun play a role in the story / image of the divided line? Yes, it does. Have you studied that at all, or do you basically know what it is? Well, basically, like the philosopher, he's down in the cave where people are suffering from all these illusions, and he liberates them and he leads them out of the cave into the broad daylight. But the sun is so bright that like it takes them a while for their eyes to adjust. So the sun is too powerful. It's as if he's saying that the truth is so powerful that that it takes a while for us to adjust. Or put it a different way, we have to be habituated. We have to be trained. Like it's kind of like if you've lived your whole life on a diet of Skittles and cotton candy, you're not going to be substantial enough to make it in the real world. But if you're trained and you've been eating your veggies and been working out, then you might be able to handle the truth in the real world. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of. By the way, my 17-year-old wanted to watch The Matrix, even though it came out after she was born, or before she was born, because she was writing a philosophy paper on it. And so we watched it, and you see this imagery in The Matrix. Like there's times whenever people go into the real world when they can't see because they've never used their eyes. That's very similar to Plato's image of the cave. The point is that one of the three images is the image of the sun, but even in the cave, the sun plays a role. But guess what, y'all? I don't know if we looked at this when we studied the divided line, but the sun is also in the divided line. I don't know if we talked about that, but you've got the divided line, and you have the 4 segments: images, faith / trust / confidence, dianoia or discursive reasoning, and then mind or intellect. But then he says that there's something that's transcendent to the line, something that is transcendent to the line. I never know if that's an E or an A. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you'd think I'd know, but I don't. And he says that this is the good. But he describes it in imagery of the sun. This is why most people say that for Plato, did he believe in the forms? Yes, but what is the ultimate form for Plato? It's the good. Yeah, so if you held a gun to my head and said, what does Plato think God is? I would say he thinks that God is the good. Anyway, the point is that the sun is a really big deal, and it pops up in all 3 of these images that Plato uses in the divided line, okay? Oops. Where'd it go? I cannot resist. I just have to say this. So, like Mason and Jacob, since they've been in my intro class, they probably have heard me say or hint that like it's really hard to be an actual atheist. You know how over and over I say God is not like Thanos? Have I said that in this class? It's not like God is the biggest badass around with huge biceps. No, because even as like badass and like kick-ass as Thanos is, he's still a thing in the world. He's still just another object in the world. Yeah, he can smash everything, but he's like, when the Hulk attacked him, the Hulk almost won. You know what I mean? Like, Thanos is just another thing in the world. But God, the God of Thomas Aquinas, let's just put it like that. The God of Thomas Aquinas is not just another thing in the world. The God of Thomas Aquinas is being as such, whatever the hell that means. The God of Thomas Aquinas, some people put it like this: the ground of all being. What would it mean to deny the existence of that? See, most atheists, what they are really saying is that they don't believe in a stupid ass God like Thanos. Well, no shit, Sherlock, neither does Thomas Aquinas. It's actually really difficult to deny the existence of the thing that Thomas Aquinas is affirming. Why? Because it's not a thing. St. John of the Cross, God is nothing. What would it mean to deny the existence of nothing? Anyway, I couldn't resist the temptation to say all that. Some theologians, and I like them a lot, actually say that in order to be a real atheist, you have to be a Christian. Okay, we're going to keep watching. An atheist would have to deny the existence of the thing that is too hard for Christians to affirm. Right? I mean, that's what he just said. He said that for Thomas Aquinas, we can't say what God is because it's too effing hard to articulate. And yet atheists think that they can deny that. They can deny the thing that Thomas Aquinas can't even affirm. That's crazy. Like, most atheists are completely full of shit. Sorry. And I say that as someone who's a hair's breadth away from atheism. Most atheists are full of shit. They really are. They think, of course, Zeus doesn't exist or Thanos. That's not what Christians mean by God. Yeah. Simon Oliver just said that for Thomas Aquinas, he does think that we can say God is good and know what we're saying. Although, did you hear what he said? He said in church. See, in other words, what he's really saying is that for Thomas, we can say things about God that are true in the liturgy, in the Mass, as we're worshiping God and talking to God. But if you're speculating about God in some abstract way, that's different. That's what Thomas Aquinas really thinks. He thinks that in prayer, liturgy, worship, you can say things that are true about God in a responsible, coherent way. But this is language that is addressed to God in worship. And it's I forgot what I was going to say. And it's the language of love. It's the language of love. Whereas if you're speculating abstractly about God, is that the language of love? No, it's not. Is that the language of prayer? No, it's not. That's whenever, according to Thomas Aquinas, language about God becomes gibberish. And I want to come back to that word gibberish in a moment. By the way, am I making sense? Good. Good. Okay, y'all, thanks for that. I hope that was good. I have about 20 minutes. I have about 20 minutes, and we're going to try to get through some stuff, okay? And I'm hoping that we can begin on Wednesday reading question 2, article 2 of the Summa, okay? All 5 ways are contained in, do I need to share my screen? Or no, I just wish that I were bigger, but I don't know what other people are looking at. Okay. On Wednesday, we're just going to delve into question 2, article 2. All 5 ways are contained in that article, okay? All right. So I'm going to pull up my PDF. This is my little lecture outline. Am I recording right now? Yes. Okay. All right. So some very brief general remarks about the overall structure of the Summa Theologiae. We're not going to talk about the Summa Contra Gentiles at all. We're talking about the Summa Theologiae. Let me just say real quick that it's in 3 parts. The prima pars, first part. Secunda pars, second part. The secunda pars is broken up into 2 parts. So you've got the first part of the second part and the second part of the second part. And then you've got the tertia pars, the third part, okay? Now, and yes, I mean, like I have a friend who bought me the Summa Theologiae for Christmas like 3 years ago. And this is one, I think that this particular yeah, with oh, thanks. Yeah, this particular version of the Summa, thank you, Jacob, was published in 2012. 2012. And what I want to say is that this is one of like 20 volumes with this particular edition. And as you see, because I put it on, this is what I put on Canvas. And so you know, I think you know, that in the left column, you have Latin, and in the right column, you have English, which is awesome. And yeah, some brief remarks about the Summa. And let me just pass this around, if you don't mind, like take it and pass it around like show and tell. Thank you. Yeah, some brief overall remarks. So Torrell says something really cool. He says that the overall structure of the Summa can be described as a pattern. You want me to do it? I got it. A pattern of exitus et reditus. Exitus et reditus. Exitus et reditus. Oh yeah, it's on the thing. I'm still going to write it up here. Exitus et reditus. Now, I don't know, exitus et reditus. Now, I don't know if we've talked about this in this class, but it's a Neoplatonist thing. The idea, oh, you know what? We saw it in the line, although I probably didn't make it explicit. You know how in Plato's line, remember how I tried to say that if you take these two moments together, images and faith, you might call that apprehension, like it's grasping objects. Or you might say recognizing objects, like, oh, there's Mirka, you know, oh, there's Jacob, I recognize them. And it takes images and a kind of confidence that I'm not dreaming for me to have that recognition, okay? Well, remember how I said that in the final moment, nous, you might think of that as comprehension. Comprehension, but it's comprehending the whole. And it takes place after the complexity of dianoia, which is a process of like steps and parts and discrete pieces of information that you're moving through over time. So that this last moment is kind of a repetition. It's kind of a repetition of the bottom moment. See, that's similar to the pattern of exit and return. The pattern of exit and return looks like this. And so, okay, so repetition is involved in the idea of exit and return. Repetition is involved. There's a repetition that happens here with the line. But here's what Bonaventure says in a book that he wrote called the Hexameron. He says that creation exits out of God. It exits out of God. And by the way, whether you believe in the biblical account of creation or, you know, it makes sense to say that creation comes out of God. I mean, I expect that makes some intuitive sense. If you're a Christian and you believe that God made the world, then you believe that creation comes out of God. Are you with me? So what Bonaventure says is that you've got God, creation or the world comes out of God, it passes through Christ. That's what the cross means. But then it goes back to God. It goes back to God. So there's an exit. Here's the exit. And then there's a what? A return. exit and return. It's like a pattern, okay? Yeah, the world comes out of God or from. The word from and out of are almost the same. Yes. Existence or the world comes from or out of God. Yes.
So then existence returns to God?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Good question. I mean, we don't have time to talk about it, but I mean, so Christians believe in this thing called eschatology. Eschaton means the last things. I mean, Christians believe, Thomas Aquinas believed, Bonaventure believed, that all of reality will experience a great homecoming in God. God's not going to let the world burn and go to hell. God's going to save the world, and the world is going to return to God. The fact that you didn't learn this in Sunday school, and neither did I, is kind of funny sometimes, but that is what most Christians have believed. Certainly Thomas Aquinas does. God is not going to destroy the world. Now, the world, there might be some destruction before we get back to God, yeah, but ultimately the world is going to return to God through Christ, according to someone like Bonaventure. But y'all, the point right now is that this is a pattern of exit and return, okay? So check this out. Watch carefully. The destination. What is the Okay, wait. Can you see that this is a journey? Can you see that that's a journey or an itinerary or maybe a pilgrimage? It's a journey, right? Let me ask you this. What is the origin of the journey? Someone raise your hand and tell me. And you guys online can talk too. What is the origin of the journey? God. What is the destination of the journey? God. Did you see that? The origin and the destination are the same. That's a repetition. God gets repeated. So there's an exit from God, but then a return to God. But guess what? The destination, the destiny is on a higher plane. So there's a pattern of exit and return, but it's not just like a circle, it's like a spiral. Maybe you've heard the phrase the hermeneutical circle. This is something that comes from a philosopher named Gadamer. It's not really a hermeneutical circle, it's a hermeneutical spiral. So that there's a repetition, but there's some progress that's made. The origin is better than, the destination is better than the origin. Let me repeat that. The destination is better than the origin, but it's still the same. And if you think about stories like Homer, like the Odyssey, Homer leaves his beautiful wife Penelope, he comes back. That's exit and return. But guess what? When he comes back, he's like transformed. You can see this in all sorts of stories and myths. You can see it in Star Wars. We don't have time to talk about it. But the point right now is this. This is what Terrell says is going on in the Summa. Let me read this. In other words, the pattern of exit and return, Terrell says that that's what's going on in the Summa, okay? Can y'all see that? A circular plan. At the very beginning, Thomas tells us that he wants to speak of God as the source and end of all creation. Can you see how that's kind of like the origin and the destiny? Source and end. At the very beginning, Thomas tells us that he wants to speak of God as the source and end of all creatures. This fundamental fact, which governs the entire organization of the Summa, is like a subterranean current that unifies, by tying together the three parts in the multiple treatises. There is a structure underlying the multiplicity. The work is in fact construed according to a circular plan. A circular plan that draws the reader into the, quote, going out from, returning to, the going out from, returning to, Exodus reditus, movement, which is that of the entire universe. Look, I'm not just making this stuff up, and it's not just Bonaventure that believes this. Thomas believes it too. which is that of the entire universe, coming from God as its creator and returning to God as its final end. Thomas may have borrowed this notion from the Neoplatonism of his masters. You see, this pattern of exit and return, exitus et reditus, it's Neoplatonist. It really comes, yeah, it's Neoplatonist. It really comes from Plotinus. He may have borrowed this notion from the Neoplatonism of his masters. When Terrell says masters there, he really just means authorities. Remember how when we read C.S. Lewis, The Discarded Image, that Lewis made a big deal out of how for the medievals, like if you read something in a book, if you and I read something out of a dusty old book that's hundreds of years old, we tend to be suspicious of it and disbelieve it. But for the medievals, they believed it. And C.S. Lewis talked about authorities or auctores. Well, that's similar to masters here, masters. Thomas may have borrowed this notion of exitus et reditu from the Neoplatonism of his masters, but he had been long familiar with the idea. It was already found in the Bible, where God is referred to as the what? The Alpha and the Omega of all things. The practical value of this insight becomes eminently clear in the second part, since man, as a free person, has the privilege of consciously embracing this movement. Okay, I'm going to read that quote, even though I don't have time. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to talk for 12 more minutes, y'all. Man being made in the image of God, by which, according to John Damascene, we must understand that he is endowed with intelligence, free will, and the power of autonomous action, we must now, after having spoken of the exemplar, that's a big word. That's a big word for Bonaventure as well. Having spoken of the exemplar, we must take up that which concerns his image, which is to say man, insofar as he too is the source of his own acts by virtue of his free will and the mastery of his actions. I'm going to stop right there with Terrell. What he's saying, though, a big part of what the Summa is, a big part of what the Summa is the Summa, and I think I'm about to say this, I can't quite remember, but the Summa is Thomas Aquinas talking about how man, because he's in, this is crazy, about how man, because he's intelligent, is finding his way back to God. Now, if you're a Calvinist, and I don't expect you to hang with me here, then that sounds like heresy. It sounds like Pelagianism. It sounds like human beings are trying to earn their own salvation. But let me say it again. Thomas thinks that man is in the process of finding his way back to God. The problem is that when you and I hear that, we forget about Jesus. Thomas Aquinas is like, oh, no. The way man is finding man's way back to God is in and through the man, Jesus Christ. Am I making sense right now? So how is mankind or the human being finding its way back to God in this pattern of exit and return? In and through the man, Jesus Christ, for Thomas Aquinas. Because, and it has everything to do with rationality. It's man using man's, and humanity using humanity's own reason to find our way back to God. Now, that does not happen apart from Christ for Thomas, but it does happen. And it happens because man is rational. Okay? So, yeah. Okay, so y'all, we've done the Exodus and Reditu part. I'm gonna do this real quick. Terrell also says something about the macro structure of the Summa. He says something else, and what he says is that the Summa can be broken up into two parts, Roman numeral 1 and Roman numeral 2. Okay, hang with me here. Roman numeral 1, Thomas calls theologia, theology. Roman numeral 2, and this is weird for your ears, is called economia. Economia. Now, everything that we just said about exit and return applies only to economia. When the Greeks talk about oikonomia, which comes from the root word oikos, which means house in Greek, like the Greek yogurt, oikos. I don't know if you're with me right now. Oikos means house. So oikonomia means economy. And what is an economy for the pre-moderns? It's the functioning of a household. It's the functioning of a household. What kind of household? Well, it could be the household of a mom and dad and 2 kids. It could be the household of a group of roommates. It could be the household of the United States economy. Can the U.S. economy be thought of as a household? Yeah, it can be. It could be the household of the entire human civilization, all 8 billion of us. But see, an oikonomia is just the functioning of the household, of a household. So part 1 of the Summa, according to Terrell, is called Theologia. Part 2 is the Economia. And only part 2 is this functioning of the household as it departs out of God, but then through Christ returns back to God. I'm tempted to say a lot more about this, but I got to move. Let me read Terrell. Oops. Okay. This division into 2 parts retrieves a distinction similar to the fathers of the church between theology, the consideration of God in himself, on the one hand, in other words, Trinitarian theology, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? That's God and God's self. Theology on the one hand, sometimes I call that theology proper. Theology proper, just focusing on God, not creation, not like I don't know, worship, just not the Bible, just God. God's essence, God is triune. That I call that theology proper. So this division is similar to that of the fathers of the church between theology, the consideration of God in himself, Trinitarian theology, and economy, the work of God as it is accomplished in time. In time. That is salvation history. In fact, this is what the prologue at the beginning of the Summa, this means prima pars, question 2, announces. Thomas's intention is to transmit the doctrine concerning God, first as God is in himself, which is the object of questions 2 through 43 of the first part, then as he is the principle and end of all things. This covers the rest of the work. Not only the first, but also the second and third parts. Okay? I'm going to keep reading because it's really good. I hope that you find this interesting. I hope that this class can show you the poverty of a secular education. There's so much that you're missing there's so much that I was missing when I went to public schools and then went to UT Austin. There's just so much. I didn't learn to think. Even when I went to an evangelical seminary, I didn't learn to think. I only learned to think when I started reading Catholic stuff. I'm not sure if I'm helping you, but that's my testimony. And I'm not even Catholic, y'all. I mean, I'm Reformed Catholic. I'm an Anglican. All right, I'm going to keep reading, though. The circular plan, the circular schema of going out and returning to God, the Alpha and Omega, applies only to the economic part of the Summa. That's what I said. The movement of going out from corresponds to the end of the first part, questions 44 to 119. So that's the exitus. Thomas begins as the Bible does with creation in time. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The complementary movement is described in the second and third parts. In other words, the reditus is described in the second and third parts. These parts are perfectly unified under the sign of the return of the rational creature to God under the leadership of Christ. That's what I was just saying. The incarnate Word, Jesus, takes the lead in this movement, for he alone is able to bring it to completion. Would you agree with me that according to Christians, Jesus Christ he exits from God, but then returns to God. By the way, that's called mission, missio in Latin. The mission of God is the second person of the Trinity going out from God. That's God sent God's self on mission out. But then, did Jesus Christ ascend into heaven? Yes, he returned. There's the reditus back into God. So the Word takes the lead in this movement, for he alone is able to bring it to completion. The whole project is ought to have been brought to completion at the end of the third part by the glorious return of Christ at the end of time, at the beginning of new heavens and new earth. Between the two creations is placed the entire history of salvation in its diverse stages. Thomas can thus integrate the historical and existential evolution of the work of God in a perfectly organic way within a harmonious structure that of itself helps us to understand his project. Okay, so y'all, we have done Roman numeral 2. I'm going to skip the structure of the disputatio method. We'll talk about that next time as we go into the structure of question 2, article 2 of the prima pars. But I want to do one thing before I close. Because y'all, Thomas never finished the Summa. Most great works were never finished. I mean, Mozart's, or Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, I think, was never finished. Many great works were never finished. Thomas never finished the Summa, and I want to show you why. I'm going to read this. While celebrating Mass, can you all see that? Is it big enough? While celebrating Mass on December 6, 1273, the feast of St. Nicholas, Thomas underwent some sort of extraordinary experience. After Mass, Thomas did not set to work, as was his habit, but returned to his room. Reginald, that's kind of like his TA or his research assistant, his RA. Reginald tried to get him to work, but Thomas said, "Reginald, I cannot, because all that I have written seems like straw to me." Thomas seemed as if he were in a daze. A few days later, Reginald pressed him about the problem, and Thomas replied, "All that I have written seems to me like straw compared to what has been revealed to me." What happened? Scholars differ. Thomas had been working at an incredible pace and undoubtedly a certain amount of stress, both physically and mentally. Clearly, Thomas experienced more than a simple mental breakdown, because the historical sources emphasize his physical weakness after the event. Some scholars have speculated that it was something like a stroke. But was this simply a psychological/physical event, or was there a spiritual component? Thomas's remark about what was revealed to me seems to indicate a spiritual experience. Simon Tugwell notes that Thomas had just finished the section of the Summa dealing with the sacrament of the Eucharist, that whatever it was that happened occurred while Thomas was celebrating Mass. Thomas had always had a strong devotion to Christ as present in the Eucharist, and it is perhaps the case that he was granted some extraordinary insight into this mystery, an insight that made him unwilling or uninterested or unable to continue writing. I'm going to stop right there. Thomas had a mystical experience at age 50, and he stopped writing. What's the point? The point is that for someone like Thomas Aquinas, his project isn't just abstract BS about God. It's about a mystical experience. It's about experiencing God, all right? So compared to that, everything that he wrote seemed like BS. Peace, y'all. Mason, take care. Have a good one. No, it's all good. Yeah. And thanks, Christian and Max. Y'all have a wonderful day. And I'll see you on Monday. Read the Summa portion on Canvas. We'll discuss it on Wednesday. Should be fun. Peace. I'm going to end the class now. Go ahead, Michael.